Peace. This is Yuya, Assaan-ANU, Chief Jegna of the ANU Spiritual Order, Head Instructor at the Sadulu House Spiritual Center. And we are in the midst of another Foundational Friday on the glorious home that we call Enlightenment and Transformation. It feels as though it's been some time since I've done Foundational Friday, although I've done one, performed one last Friday, but this Friday feels very different. This Friday of September 5th, 2014. It's a great day for me. It's a great day for the world. Some amazing things have happened on this day for us all. And it's a subtle thing to be able to see it, recognize it, appreciate it, and to give it its proper value and reciprocate the value exchange, as we spoke about last night on Thunderground Thursday in dealing with the science of trustworthiness and our basic tenets of leadership and the warrior code. I would advise you all, if you have not checked out the Thunderground Thursday episode, that you do so. I know that some have told me, even though I've taken a break from Foundational Friday for several months, that they're still catching up on the old shows, which I find pretty incredible, to be honest, because sometimes I feel like I don't put out enough shows. I look at other people who, with their networks, there's some people who do shows every day or twice a strong, sometimes 3 times. And they usually go longer. I mean, my shows are only an hour. There's some people who will go for 2-3 hours every day or every other day. And sometimes I look at it and say, maybe I should be doing more shows, but at this point in time, me, myself, I'm unable to do but so many because there are other obligations that I have committed myself to for the assistance and help of others. So when I do come on this experience and on this journey, I try to give as much as I can to the particular moment, the topic, and discussion that we're speaking on, which is difficult too, because there's always so much deeper one could go. And most of the concepts that I present, I pretty much stay in the realm of introductory information. And I try not to go so deep as to give you something that you cannot immediately apply. So that's why sometimes I say, oh, maybe I should do more. Maybe I should just hammer one topic over and over. But then I would have to take away from my other duties, and there are some things that hold higher priority. But like I said, in time, someone will come and really take the reins. I'll be able to train someone up and educate them to the level that they can take these shows over and present to you, and then you won't hear from me. Maybe I'll get to call in as a guest once in a while. They'll allow me to do that. But in the meantime, I am the conductor on this journey, and I wanted to start this show off with a few things. One, I wanted to answer a few emails that had come into the customer service box, which I felt were really good questions, and maybe even questions that were not as unique as I would like. So when I get those type of questions in the inbox, those are typically the ones that I will share with you, because I know if I seen this kind of question come in 5, 6, 7 times, then perhaps there's others who are feeling the same way or dealing with the same dilemma and could benefit from the answer that I have to present. Okay. So before we get into our questions, first I want to deal with, as you all know, this Saturday I'll be in Baltimore at Everyone's Place, and that will be kicking off at 2:00 from 2 to 4. That's Everyone's Bookstore. And I know we have a handful of students who will be there on that day. So of course I look forward to seeing you all and being able to chop it up with you and, you know, build as we do when we have an opportunity to see each other in the physical. So again, that's at Everyone's Place, 2 to 4, September 6th, Saturday. And the address there is 1356 West North Avenue. That's in Baltimore, Maryland. And then after that, on the 27th of this month, September, I'll be at the Pagan Pride Day. And that's at Washington Square Park, over by Waverly Place, over on 4th Street and McDougal. And I'll be there. I'm not sure what time again I'm presenting. Again, like I said, they tend to sometimes give me that information a little late for some reason. But I will be there that day. I don't know what tent I'll be presenting out of, nor do I know the time. But, you know, stay posted on that RSVP. So if you RSVP, you'll get the updates. And I'll be speaking on decoding rituals and sacrifice. Okay. And of course, I'm speaking about rituals and sacrifice from our perspective. All right. So I think that will be good information for those in the New York area to come through and check out. And on the 27th of December, I'll be at Black and Nobel in Philadelphia. And that's over at 1409 West Erie Ave. And that's Black and Nobel in Philly. Again, RSVP for that. I know it's in December, second day of Kwanzaa, and I know many are saying, "Oh, it's all the way in December. I don't know what I'm going to be doing in December." But like I said recently, it's good that you RSVP, because if I don't get a certain amount of RSVPs now, then I won't make an attendance. And it's not to say that people don't show up because they do. People just come to the door, and most of the time we do events, the turnouts are usually really good. So that's not really so much the issue, but it feels much better when you're moving with order, when you're moving with structure. You know, it makes me more proud to present. And I think for those who are hosting the events, they have a better sense of pride and even professionalism in the supportive and served audience that is coming through for this information. So, you know, we're going to have to start moving in a much more orderly fashion. And so again, I'll be discussing the power of the 14 African principles, as well as their application in community building, as well as the building, cultivation, and development of the internal community. Okay, so you see that meiotic balance. We're not just looking to personally enrich ourselves and to build ourselves up, but whatever we do for ourselves, we also have to do for our communities, because, as I always say, the best self-preservation is group preservation. So again, that'll be on the 27th. That's at 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Black and Nobel in Philadelphia, which is 1409 West Erie Ave. All right, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So again, I just wanted to make everyone clear. And like I always say, if you're enjoying the shows and the books and things, comment, participate, share the information, make it an interactive experience. You know, I know some people, and it's always interesting when they share the information. They tell me, you know, I try to envision, and sometimes I even wish I could attend, but I have a couple of people who, like, they do Foundational Friday listening parties. And the first time someone told me that they were doing that, I thought it was pretty interesting, and I certainly thought it was very unique until I heard about it again. And then a third time. That I think the first one, though, is she's the most elaborate, because she makes food and everyone brings a dish, and so there's a group of them. And I also have other awos, or other priests, who teach classes weekly on my shows. I have one gentleman, he's out of the country, out of the North America, and he teaches a class, but he does it monthly using the information from my shows, which it's all good. You know, I'm cool with that. This information was established, and this information was originally shared by the source so that we would share it. Okay, so in order to keep stimulating that process so that we receive more from the source, we have to put it out there, you know. But that's some of the things I'll be touching on tomorrow in Baltimore. Again, like I said, in Thunderground Thursday, I'd be touching on the science of sharing. So, you know, it's important that the information gets out there, and it gets out there in a respectful way. You know, I'm not just talking about take my shows, steal them and sell them, or just plagiarize my material, which a lot of people have been doing. I don't really confront people on it, but I see them. I see you. I've even had a student in the past who was teaching my class. You know, he hadn't even completed the class properly, and he was teaching it to other people in his locality. So, you know, that's not good. Don't do that. You know, I told a story about that when I broke down the story of Rumila and his sons, and you know how his son did not want to bow to him as the king because he said, I have all of your clothing. I have the brass slippers and the crown, and I have the staff. So I am just as you. I am a king. And Orunmila sent him away from him. And I broke that down. So you want to check out that story where I get into the problem and the fallacy of indiscriminate emulation, where you're just copying something and you don't really have the force or the authenticity, the ma'at behind it. This was also addressed yesterday in our Foundational Friday segment. Thunderground Thursday segment, where I spoke about the art of being credible or credibility and its true value and significance in the mapping out, the selection, and the discerning of the leadership population. You know, interesting thing too, amongst those who we call leaders in this time, so many have emerged, I guess because it's so easy now to posture yourself as such. The internet, though it gives you so many opportunities to gather information on an individual, it also gives said individual lots of opportunity to actually hide their identity or to create a new one for themselves. And it's very easy just to emerge and call yourself a leader and really create a veil that people can't really peer through and peek through to find out if what you're saying is authentic. As I look at the debate culture, it closely resembles battles of the gods. If we could imagine, you know, in a debate culture, not just a debate, I'm going to say the conscious teacher beef culture, because it's a lot of it is going outside of the realms of controlled debates, controlled environments where people can express their different perspectives, even if they do it in a way that's entertaining, or even if they do it in a way where there's other strategy employed outside of their given intellect, you know, which is a part of the debate. That's a part of the fight. You have to use different things. It's just called, that's the very culture of it, you know, of debate. But there's like also another beef culture that's now existing amongst who we will call conscious teachers and conscious leaders. And if one is not in tune with the conscious awareness and elevated awareness, and they were just to kind of sit back and look, it would almost look like gods are fighting one another. You know, it would look like battles of the gods. You know, when you take two individuals, let's say like, I'm not going to use names. That would be a destruction of my code. Even though I always say in my code, I will not stir up any dissension by using names and speaking against. I think even by using names of even beef that's already out there that you can find, by me even repeating it, feeds into a mission that tears down my own cultural and ethnic stronghold. So I'm gonna leave that out. But I'm just going to speak to the fact that those looking from the outside in, it must look like a pretty scary event going on right now with so many people, quote unquote, beefing. And you have elder teachers beefing as well as young people, you know, within said community. And of course, I don't agree with it. I don't think it's a good thing, but that's the human story. On the spiritual side, I also see that all of this beefing and debating will give rise to new energy. And of course, we all know we need new energy. This is giving rise to a new consciousness, a much needed consciousness, because in some ways, even if this debate and beef culture is wrong, it will cause people to cast away eventually those of that beef and debate culture who have not proven themselves through their trustworthiness to provide anything other than entertainment that we have to come and buy. So I think it's giving rise to a new consciousness. So there is another good story about it, and there's more to it, of course. It's, when people are debating and beefing and using certain references to prove their point, then it also causes the listener to go and maybe acquire those same texts or those same sources to tap into them to get the information that's needed. Okay, so I mean, there's balance in all things, even things that we may disagree with. That is a personal and subjective decision that I have made to disagree with it. So that means if it's subjective, then it has its other polar expression where I will agree, some will disagree, because it's not an absolute. So there is some value in it, but I just thought it was very interesting that very culture, how it's emerged and come forth at this time. And in some instances, even when you look at the names of the people who are debating and beefing, you can actually trace those names back to mythology. It almost seems very Illuminatic, if that is such a word, which I believe it can be. The beef culture. It almost seems very placed, purposeful, and as if some conspired to pit certain individuals against others because of what they represent energetically. So let's get to this question, which I thought was a pretty good one. And of course, as you know, I do not typically mention names. I'm not going to mention names, especially if it's a non-student. I won't mention the name, but I'm going to read the email also because I need to refresh myself on the email. But the subject was zombification, questions for your Q&A segment on your show. And it says, hello, I am recently coming into the information from Yuya Assaan-ANU. Happy to say that I have been pleased with many of the lectures and purchased the book, Grasping the Root of Divine Power. One lecture in particular came into the topic of zombification, and Brother Assaan stated that this was someone who lost the capability for the spirit to totally function within the body. I think I may have run into this situation. I have a friend of mine who has recently woke up, but their transformation is not happening because they are not able to feel and experience the things that they learn. My question is, how is it someone can help themselves to wake up fully and accept the knowledge, moving into the stage of making connections, as opposed to just liking the information and not being able to use it in their personal life, which is what they are having a hard time grasping. This person will ask me questions and I will direct her to videos that can be helpful. But after hearing you speak on the Ori and will and zombification, it felt that could be the challenge. Thanks in advance. And then, of course, his name, which I don't need to mention because I read the whole email. So he will certainly know it was his email. So let's get into kind of trying to answer this a bit. And I will answer it to the best of my ability and beyond my ability. Okay, so you spoke about you had a friend who recently woke up, and that was the first flag that I put a mental marking in as I was reading this, because this is not an overnight process. Now, of course, certainly you didn't describe how recent is recent. So it could have been a couple months ago, it could have been a couple years ago, it could have been a decade ago. But I'm just going to go with the word recent, and I'm going to say that recent may be between a few months ago and I'll give you 18 months. So 1.5 years. 18 months ago. I would consider that all to be pretty recent, okay, in terms of waking up. And what you noted was that their transformation is not happening because they're not able to feel and experience the things that they learn. Okay, so let's first get into the recently piece. This is not an overnight process. So your waking up or your rapture is an instantaneous thing, certainly. Your moment of enlightenment, where you wake up and you realize that everything is not as it seems, that is instantaneous. It's almost as if you are living in a world of pollution and death and toxicity, and somehow you're able to catapult yourself above the clouds, if only for a moment. And above the clouds, you get to see the sun is still shining. There's still fresh air up here. There's still moisture. But then you fall back down into the darkness of where you actually are. So if only for a moment you got a glimpse at what really resides over this world that has been created for you, or you've created for yourself. So your coming into consciousness is actually a gradual process. It's a gradual process of getting back to that space. This is one of the reasons why people use narcotics, if we want to call them, or herbs at times, in their quote-unquote shamanistic work, or even in healing work. Sometimes we may use certain herbs that will affect the energy body and also induce alternative ways of thinking. And rightly so, we call this getting high. So what happens in that moment that one is high, they're able to feel and see things because the grip and the density of the physical body is no longer the same trap for the mind that it was before. Okay, so once they can shake off the density of the body, they can now assail and go to certain realms and places mentally that they may not have been able to before because of a three-dimensional paradigm they may have been functioning from. So now what happens is when the high comes down, they're not supposed to go and find more drug. But in fact, what they're supposed to do is figure out how to recreate that feeling of lightness. And really what they're doing, they're coming into what we call clear light. But really come into that space of clear light without using the narcotic. Some people feel that they can't, so they spend the rest of their lives using narcotics. Okay? So what your friend experienced recently, that recent awakening, was just that glimpse being thrown up into the sky, but she still has to work her way up to being able to recreate not only the feeling, but recreate that space that she was in when she first awoken. Okay, and that's really what the challenge is, being that's why we learn different systems, and whatever we learn, whether it be yoga, which is very effective, deep breathing, meditation, of course, different spiritual ritual, dance, song, ritual that involves offerings and communion, divination, because we're striving for that space again. And by the consistent and repetition that we establish with these rituals, we can eventually then, on cue, recreate that ascension to that space. On cue. That is why we read books. You know, some people, they just like to do rituals and they go strictly by feeling and what my inner wisdom tells me, and all that's good. But the problem is with those individuals, they can never really totally recreate or teach and hand down the experience because they haven't coupled it with the academic understanding. So I can already tell to some degree, this friend of yours, she hasn't connected those two paradigms together. She either has the academia and not the integrative experience, or she has the other one. Now, what I'm sensing more is he has more the academia than the actual integrative experiencing. So I'm going to go to something else that you mentioned. And you said, okay, she woke up recently, but their transformation is not happening because they are not able to feel and experience the things that they learn. Transformation does not come as a product of feeling. Okay? Enlightenment and transformation. I mean, I've explained this one a lot, but, you know, when you're transforming, you're transcending your form. Okay, so in order to transcend your form, that can happen several ways, but the best way to be able to recreate it consistently is that you have to make connections with forms of other realities. Okay, and most importantly, your form that exists within another reality. It sounds like this individual is only identifying with one form and how that one form learns and takes in information. And of course, you can't learn it that way. You can't learn to be conscious. You can only learn to articulate the experiences of your consciousness. Because in fact, everybody is conscious. Okay, everyone is conscious. Now, the application of the things that one is learning, which begins to consciously rearrange your reality, which is what you're pretty much talking about. This individual is not able to feel or experience the things that they're learning, meaning that they're learning about different things spiritually or metaphysically, however they're coming into the information. I don't know. That wasn't specified. But they're not really able to make an emotional connection with it. Okay. Now, let's deal with that for a moment. The experience and the feeling. Part of the reason that that's also happening with this individual has to do with a sincere gut check. And that gut check gets them to a place where they can really ask themselves if they truly have faith in and stand on the convictions of what they're learning. I guarantee you they're not, first off. I guarantee you this individual is not making the internal changes that are necessary that go along with the academics that they're learning. This individual has to ask themselves if they're learning from the gut or if they're learning from the heart. Okay? Very important question. Learning from the gut or learning from the heart? Now, what I will say is if this person is mainly operating from the heart and connecting to the world and feeling from the heart, then they're in balance. They're okay. I already know this person isn't, though, because the heart is a very sobering place. This person is feeling and learning from the gut, from the stomach. And whenever somebody's feeling, learning, and going through life from the stomach, they're going to be out of balance. So they need to do a gut check. Okay. And the gut check says, okay, well, where am I feeling? Most of the time when I come into this information or I try to experience this information, and I do feel something come, where does that feeling come first? Do I feel like an emptiness or a dropping of my stomach? Or do I feel my heart palpitation and I feel that energy coming from a little up high, a little higher up? Okay. So that's something that person wants to do. And the other part of your question is, my question is, how is it someone can help themselves to wake up fully and accept the knowledge moving into the stage of making connections as opposed to just liking the information and not being able to use it in their personal life? Well, the first thing you have to determine is if what you're seeing in this individual, is it what you want to see or is it what they want for themselves? Most people, I know for me, I can stand in front of anyone. You can put me in front of any audience and I can connect with them. I don't care if it's a bunch of church people, if it's people of another faith outside of that, if it's people who are hardcore whatevers. I can connect with them. I can get them to connect with me, and I can get them to cheer me on and laugh and all of those great things because I have studied the skill of oration. I have that ability, that gift to move people. Okay. It's not accidental. I worked at it. I've been doing it since I was an early teen in front of large groups. So it's easy to come into information that you're liked based on how it's presented. That's not enough. Because again, I can go into groups and I can persuade people or I can go into groups and for the moment I can influence them. Now, in a moment, being able to influence someone is much stronger than being able to persuade them, because I may have a table on the side where I'm selling cookies and I can persuade everyone to go over to that table. But when I'm really coming from a place that's authentic and that person is opening themselves up in an authentic way to be vulnerable, because you know this is your friend's issue, vulnerable to what it is that they're learning and discovering, then what happens at that moment, now we have influence happening. And it could be influence, good influence or bad influence. But it certainly will be, they will be influenced. Okay, so this information is not having an influence on this individual's, what you call their personal life, because this individual has not opened themselves up to be influenced. They're only allowing themselves to be persuaded. And if they're allowing themselves to be persuaded, it is because they are standing in a position right now where they're saying, okay, convince me. Okay. So when you do that, you don't really get it. It's just like when I sometimes do readings for people, or people come to a lecture and I see them sitting there with their arms folded. You know, sometimes you see them sitting there with their legs crossed and their hands in between their legs covering their genitals. And it's the body language says it all. You know, I'm not going to let you in, and you're going to have to work to convince me. And the thing is, where it becomes a challenge with me is that I could care less. You don't have to be convinced, because if I'm up here teaching or I'm giving you a reading, it's for you. It's not for me. I can give myself a reading behind closed doors. I can teach myself by just meditating, cracking open a book, or calling one of my elders, you know? So this individual has to open themselves up more to where the information will take them, and they can't try to control it. They have too much of a tight grip on the experiences, okay? And they can't be looking for a feeling. This is not about feeling. Okay, that's a very churchical way of approaching this consciousness. You know, our church ways and our religious ways, and sometimes even the experience of Black Americans, we look for a feeling and an experience. You know, I want to come into information. I want to see everything bright and brand new. And a lot of times we get those thoughts because we hear those testimonies from other people. Oh, I went and got initiated, and then I started seeing all these spirits and all that. And I can tell you, a lot of times people are lying. Because a lot of times people who are saying they're seeing all these different things are not seeing them. It's just that they feel inept now, because they feel like they've now initiated into a line of people who have seen things. So if I didn't see it, then what's wrong with me? So now I have to make up my own story, or I have to exaggerate my experiences. And a lot of times, for those of us who really get it and get it good, it's a slow process. You know, easy come, easy go, and those that run fast, they trip. So, you know, sometimes you see people that are quick learners, or they seem to be quick learners, and they're just picking up and they're having all these amazing experiences. And then next year they're doing something different. They're out of it. They're gone. You know, so, and then some people, they take a really long time, and there's a lot of frustration, and they just don't get it right away. You see a lot of blank looks and a lot of balled up pieces of paper, and you know, it comes very slow for them. But what happens is, because it comes slow like that, it really influences their life, and they become walking examples of what it is that we're speaking about. Okay. So this individual has to give themselves more time. And I know it feels like, oh man, maybe you already told them that, but there's no easy way to do this. There's no easy pill. It's not like I say, this is not a vending machine experience. And some will tell you that it is. You know, I remember doing a show once on, I want to say Arlene Bay on his network. And, there was someone who called in. He was pretty annoying, actually, but you know, I'm good with dealing with that. And he was kind of refuting. He didn't listen to the whole show, and he called in. He was like, well, listen, you know, I've been able to levitate and move objects with my mind and things like that. Can you do that? Can you teach people how to do that? and I can bring someone completely to the crown chakra and open up all their chakras, and I think in like 5 minutes, something like that. And I was saying, okay, that's great. But what I was trying to explain was that what's the relevancy of that for a person in their lifetime? Number one. And number two, you're not going to walk around for 30 or 40 years with your chakras fully open. You'd go crazy. So what is the purpose of doing that? So now once you bring a person to that place, what is the plan that you have, the development plan that you have for them following up? If not, you'll end up with people like your friend. They got a glimpse of something that was beautiful. They got a moment of enlightenment, a spark, and then they will let down to now have to do the work to build back up to that. But no one has given them any systematic tools to do that. And this is a systematic process. Okay, that's important for you to understand. This is not just something you dance and you drum, you go to a retreat one weekend and now you're conscious for life, or you're open and aware for life, because everyone's conscious. Everything has consciousness, but you're deliberately conscious and aware of what's going on in your life. It doesn't happen like that. Your friend will get it as long as she is consistent and she puts the work into it. You only get out of this what you put into it. Okay. So like you said, this person will ask you questions and you direct her to videos. Okay. Well, I will say this, direct her to your own life. The greatest thing that you can offer to this person is yourself as an example. That's the greatest thing you can offer. And that's the only thing you should really be totally concerned about in terms of this. Is this person zombified? No, I don't think so, because if they were able to encounter information and they had a like at least for it, and they have some frustration because they're not seeing a transformation happen right away because of things that they're not letting go of. That's what we know it is. But that's not zombification. Like, she still sees the light of the truth. She can still see it, understand it, and she's taking it in. It's just not working as quickly as she would like it to. So it's good that you wrote and you asked, of course, because you're concerned for this sister, and you went right to the worst case scenario, which is again good, to make sure that it's not something bigger. But no, that's not the issue here. The issue here is that this individual is looking for feelings and experience, and looking for an external transformation of her life without applying this wisdom internally and developing an unconditional love affair for that wisdom that she's receiving. And once she develops that unconditional love affair, then her subtle energy body will start to change. And once that subtle energy body starts to change, then the vital energy around her will be able to flow through her more. Okay, and we learned this just through the science of breath. Through the air, there's certain vital energy. Like Sister Tamu, she does that segment on our Mastermind Monday show, Your Vital Energy. And vital energy is important. I would encourage this sister to actually listen to some of the meditations Tamu offers, because they're excellent. And once you learn to kind of take in the vital energy that's in your environment, and it's subtle, it's not gross vital energy. It's not a lightning bolt striking you and now you got power to flip cars over. It's subtle. It's a subtle vital energy that surrounds us. That's in the air. Literally, it's in the air. And you can take it into your subtle body, and that will start to transform you internally. I would say it would be great for this individual to start really working on modalities dealing with breathing. Okay. To center and to start sending energy into the heart. Okay. To quell some of those emotions that she's been dealing with. All right. So that's the answer to that. And I'm going to hit one more before we deal with what we got to deal with. The more I think about it, I think this might just end up being a Q&A show, because I'm looking at some of the emails that were forwarded to me from the Q&A box, or the questions at anunation.org. And of course, anyone, if you have a question, always send it to questions@anunation.org, which is QUESTIONS at ANUNATION.org. Okay, and I'm gonna read another one. This one comes, subject is a high frequency radio interview. And this one says, greetings, Brother Yuya. Thank you for the information you bring to the community. Well, this came from High Frequency. You sure you don't want to call me Brother Yayu? No, I'm just messing with you. But anyway, greetings, Brother Yuya. Thank you for the information you bring to the community. I just listened to an interview you did on High Frequency Radio a while back, and you mentioned something about women having imprints within our waters. I wasn't clear on what you meant by this. Is there information you could direct me to so that I may further study? Respectfully, and her name. I'm assuming her. Yeah, I believe it's her. It's a her. Okay, so I don't remember speaking about that, but sure, it is something that I've said before. So I don't really know the context, but real quick on this one. Understand that when you're dealing with the energy of soul is a feminine energy. It's a magnetic, contractive, dark matter, cold energy. Okay, and spirit is hot energy. It's masculine and it's electric. Okay, so spirit is masculine, whereas soul is feminine. And what happens is the interplay between the soul and the spirit, when those two begin to interact with each other, whether it be the spirit is aligning with the soul or the spirit is moving away from the soul. In fact, just like the sun setting into the water, which we call the horizon, is an interplay between fire and water. Whenever we're having interactions between our soul and spirit, whether it be just through thought or whether it be through the orchestration of our life path, whether it be through meditation, dance, so forth and so on, the residue, or what we call the valence, is retained within the soul. Okay, so whatever that memory of what that interaction was or is, the soul holds the record of it. So very similar to this, to give you maybe a waking example, if you think about the act of sex, okay, and I know a lot of times I reference sex, but because it's usually something that, without knowing any of this deep metaphysical stuff that I speak about, or the deep Orisha stuff that I speak about, or the deep Ifa stuff, most people can know the basics of sex. And it's a really good, sex and animals, I find, are really good ways that I can explain things to people. But some people don't spend much time in nature, so the animal thing, I don't really get into. But let's get back to this idea of sex in this sense. When a male and female interact with each other intimately in that way, and the man enters the course, he deposits himself inside of the woman. Now, what occurs is that in that depositing, sometimes there's a process of acceptance by the woman, or the woman's egg could actually fight that sperm off. There could actually be a battle, depending on if they're compatible or not. Now, what happens is that in order to maintain a record of what works for that woman's biochemistry and what doesn't, the womb will leave an imprint of that. The womb will leave a record. Now, the man doesn't have a record. He gets up, he does what he does, and he's on to the next experience. And this is not to say that men have an automatic detached mechanism whether it is an sexual experience or there's a spirit experience of conception. I know this is a commonly held misconception about men, that we don't care about what we create. In fact, it's the exact opposite. We go into a certain mode when we create, where we go on these intense missions to protect, preserve, and provide for what we create. But sometimes the strengths that be, they will manipulate situations so that we are unable to do what our biology calls us to. But when you're dealing with the feminine principle, you're dealing with a repository. So just like a womb is a repository of energy, that's why women are more susceptible to things. Women are not only more susceptible to disease, but women are also more susceptible to mental disease. Women are more susceptible to taking in bad information, bad light, because their spirit body, energetically, they are receptivity. They are the negative component. Again, that dark matter, sexual cradle of the universe. A lot of times we speak about the Kundalini energy, And we leave out the fact that the Kundalini cradles itself inside of something. And Kundalini, yeah, sure, that's one aspect of our arousal, of our sexual arousal, even our sexual elevation. But you cannot exclude the brain. You cannot exclude the body and the somatic functions, the vegetative functions, the hormonal functions. All of these things act as a cradle for the Kundalini energy. Okay, so woman serves as the same thing. For the elevation and the excitement of the spirit body, it is the feminine principle and the feminine energy that serves as a cradle for that potential. Okay, or for that movement, for that energy. So therefore, whether there's trauma, whether there's something that needs to be balanced so that the launch could be done properly, it is the feminine principle that's going to hold that energy within it. And in order to study this more, start simple. My things always start simple. Study the properties of water. Okay, study the properties of the womb, and you can study the biological chemical properties as well as the esoteric properties. That would help you out greatly. And I would greatly encourage you to study, go on a brief study of just to make the chromosomic makeup, so you can get an understanding of that. What does the X chromosome represent? Well, we know, what does the Y chromosome represent? Okay, we know one is male, one is female, one represents spirit, one represents soul. And just look at the process of the creation of a child and how the chromosomes actually drop off and change and morph, because that's what's really happening. And then you'll understand what's left behind. There's always something that's left behind that, again, holds the memory or the imprint, which is, again, that feminine element. And, of course, there's more to it. But you asked the question just the way it should be asked. You're interested about something and you want to know where to study. Okay, as opposed to getting me to lay the answer in your hand, because as I said in the question show, if I do that, I snatch a portion of your life purpose. So this may be your perspective that you derive and you come up with through your course of study may play a key role in you fulfilling your life purpose. All right, so I want to get on to another piece that's kind of important. And this didn't come in the form of an email, but in fact, it came in the form of a consultation that I was doing with an individual. And at the end of the consultation, we were outside, and he asked me a question. And it's not the first time I received this question. Some questions I'll use are the ones that actually come in, but I felt that it needed to be addressed. It wasn't really a Q&A thing, but it was just a topic that I needed to address and to really speak on. And the question he asked me, he's going through certain issues right now, financially and even emotionally. He has some issues with his health as well. And he asked, if there were any rituals that he could do to get a better quality of woman. Now, when we say get, I mean get, not join in union with per se, not create families with, but just to engage sexually. He was disappointed with the kind of woman that he was able to acquire at that point in his life, and he wanted me to give him some rituals, and he actually wanted me to prepare something, a charm that would allow him to get what he called were hotter women. And I explained some things to him that were for him, and I'm going to explain some things to the listening audience, because this question has come up before. And what I'm going to say is this: magic is temporary. You've heard me say that before. Okay, so what's supposed to happen when you start to encounter these spiritual experiences and entities? They're supposed to make you smarter. Okay, ultimately, that's what this is about. This is about the full mastery of your brain. Okay, this is not about you staying ignorant, not willing to transform, but still being opened up to the blessings and the gifts of the universe. In fact, what is supposed to happen when you're tapping into the spirit and the energy and the intelligence of these cosmic archetypes, which are cosmic factories of Ashe and intelligence. That's what they actually are. Each Orisha is a factory and a formula. If I take some of the chemical from this factory and mix it with the chemical from this factory, this is what I get. Okay. So because they are selected consciousness, what they do is that when you employ them at their highest levels and you channel upward from them, meaning normally we push energy to the Orisha to do something. But when we create a cyclical experience with them, as signified by the symbol of the Ankh, it's really a mating, an intercourse. Then what happens is that as we push energy to them, they push intelligence back to us. So, and as this question has come up before, and only with the fellas, the reason you're not getting the level of women that you would like to get is not because someone has placed a hex on you. It's because the level of women that you are getting is all you can get right now. You're looking at your level. Okay, because you haven't acquired the intellect that would raise your vibration to get the type of women that you really want, which are most likely the type of women that you shouldn't have anyway. Okay, sometimes our measurements for a valuable woman are really off. You know, we're using the wrong criteria, and our criteria within itself speaks to cognitive dissonance. You know, I've heard people speak about, sometimes they'll describe women to me and they'll say, oh, this sister was bad. You know, she was conscious. She had this, she had that. And she had these long locks down to her ankles. Beautiful. You know, well, sometimes you got to look at your standards of beauty. And I'm not saying there's anything with long locks down to the ankle. I'm sure it is beautiful, you know, but are you assimilating that with someone else's standard of beauty when we say like they have long flowing hair? You know, if the sister was bald-headed, you know, like many sisters on the continent in certain regions, would she still be as beautiful to you? Or are you simulating someone else's standard of beauty and nestling it into your conscious culture? So when you start doing rituals and you come into this understanding and you're still looking for quote-unquote hot chicks, then we've understood that you've brought your old decrepit standard of beauty that doesn't relate to you on your throne, and you're now trying to bring that into this new experience. And sometimes the spiritual entities that are around you won't allow you to get off your throne to go meddle with the lower vibrational peasants. Okay, so who you're going to have to interact with, the people who are on the throne as well, but you're going to have to grow into your crown. And certainly you won't grow into your crown by wanting to do rituals to manipulate women's vaginas. That's not cool. You know, you should have enough game as a man on GP in order to bring women into your cause. Okay, when you start tapping into the spiritual awareness, it should make you more intelligent, more engaging. It should give you a higher level of game. It should give you a higher level. Your mouthpiece should be sharper. Okay, if you don't have any of those things, it goes back to the conversation about the woman who's, you know, with the lack of transformation, then that means the inner transformation is not occurring. Okay, because there's nothing more charismatic or engaging or interesting or intriguing than spiritual entities. When you allow them to flow through you, then you will bring to you the women that you're supposed to have, you know. But if your desire is only to manipulate and use them as a tool of orgasm, then maybe their ancestors are looking out for them and not allowing you to have that experience. On another level, brothers, if you still have not understood what I just said to you, and it hasn't really sunk in, you know, because I know sometimes when, you know, especially as men, when we want something, that's it. We, you know, all that stuff Yuya's talking about. Yeah, that's good. But listen, how do I get these women who look like video vixens and Yara Sanchez? I got you. I got you. I got you. So this is what you do. You develop a plan for yourself and your family. And when you meet these women, that's what you share with them. Share with them little tidbits of the plan, and then see what their response is. Okay? Because if you don't own a tool set, you don't deserve to have a woman. And you don't deserve to have a woman that you could get for free. Let's put it that way. If you don't own a hammer, if you don't own a socket set, okay, if you don't own a pair of pliers, if you don't own a vice grip, if you don't own plumbing tools, if you don't own a welding torch, you could use a MAP gas torch, that's fine. If you don't own some flux and resin, if you don't own some steel wool, if you don't own a crowbar, if you don't own a tire jack, if you don't own a tire pressure gauge, okay, then you do not deserve a woman. If you don't own a T-square, if you don't own a sheetrock knife, if you don't own a rubber mallet, okay, then you do not deserve a woman. If you do not own a buck knife, you do not deserve a woman. Okay, so I could go on, but I think you understand what I'm saying. So we're in a new age now. A new consciousness is arising. And if you're functioning from the paradigm of someone who's spiritual, but you're finding these non-spiritual people are able to pull the women that you would like to pull, then you have to fully walk in the fullness of what it is that you say you're representing. If you're representing the God consciousness in masculine form re-emerging on the planet, well, take a note that masculine form is a part of that. So you have to be a man first. You have to have a plan. And women, if they don't have a plan, don't hug them. Don't take your breast and press it against their body and squeeze them and say, hey, peace, brother, how you doing? Don't even give them that. Give them nothing. You know, as soon as they say, hey, sis, and how you doing? They reach out there, their arms are hugging. You say, brother, hold on, brother. Do you have a plan? Do you have a plan that you are actively engaging? And let me hear it. Let me hear if it makes sense. Okay. Can you change my tire? Okay. Can you lift more than 60 pounds over your head? Do you have a strong back? Are you sterile? You know, so again, you know, and the brother I spoke to, I gave him some answers and I told him to listen to tonight's show. So of course you are listening and you're getting the remainder of your answer, and you're either laughing or you're cursing me, you know, but just understand that what I'm saying out of love for my daughter. Okay. So that's why I'm sharing what I'm sharing, because you may have an opportunity to speak to another young man one day, and I wouldn't want him to have that psychotic perspective that you shared with me. Okay. So for the love of my daughter, listen to everything that I'm saying. Okay. Because she loves her Baba. And it's not hard to leave this country. It's not hard to assassinate someone for violating your daughter and then leaving the country. It's not hard to leave. It's hard to get back in, but it's easy to leave. You know, so I wouldn't have to sit in jail or anything like that. So, you know, for the love of my child, brother, you have to develop a plan, and you have to redefine what a hot chick is. Okay, because a woman who can heal my headache, that's hot to me. You know, a woman who can make me a shirt is hot. A woman who can make me and my child, our children, a healthy meal, that's hot. You know, a woman who knows what kind of bath to run for me, to what spiritual entity based on the energy that I came into the home with, that's a hot chick. She's hot. Okay. A woman standing on the strength of her divine purpose and calling in life is hot. A woman, when I meet her, who says, brother, I love the work that you're doing. How can I serve? How can I be a part of this? That's hot. Okay, that's hot. A woman who has a big, thick body that was made off of dirty swine and filthy poultry is not so hot to me. Okay, that's not so hot to me. So maybe I'm not the best one to answer the question, but I felt it should be addressed because it's come up several times, and I know it probably comes up because, you know, when I'm having when I'm doing readings for people and spiritual counseling, I try to keep things as laid back as possible because I know I hit a very I'm the brutal truth, the brutal truth priest. I know that, so I try to present things in a way where people don't feel, you know, fragmented after we part from one another and they're left whole, and which is good because a lot of times that causes them to feel comfortable enough to ask certain questions, you know. And if you didn't ask me, maybe we would never be able to address it and get to it. So I'm glad we did. All right. So that is my answer for that. And, you know, that's all I'm going to say on the Q&As. All right. So I guess it was more important in this segment that I dealt with questions that came in, and, you know, I go with the flow of spirit. So the spirit leads is what I'm going to present to you all. And that is one of the things I love about what I do, you know, and the fact that it's not dictated by anyone's desire or anyone's craving, because we know craving only brings suffering. It brings suffering to the all. But what I do is dictated on the messages that flow in the wind, you know. So we were able to do this Q&A. So this Sunday, I want you to give a listen, give an ear to our newest Safo. Be airing at 1 p.m. Eastern. Okay. And we got a new exciting also show coming on another network, told you, at USFL, that it looks like we're still working out the days and the times, but that should be a pretty interesting experience. And of course, you know, Mondays you have Mastermind Mondays. Okay. And we're dealing with the spirituality of wealth, tapping into those ideas and concepts. And then again on Thursday we'll have a Thunderground Thursday, and Friday another Foundational Friday. And then we're slowly still adding some shows to the network and expanding this thing so that we can hit different angles and try to cover all of the different questions that you all may have. But keep your questions coming in, especially for Masterminds Mondays. You know, I have a lot of people here I know listen to the show who want to start businesses or have businesses and want to know rituals and things that they can do to get that popping. Then you need to send an email to Masterminds Monday. And I believe that email is mastermindsmonday@gmail.com or Masterminds Monday, something like that. Listen to a segment and you'll be able to hear the email there. All right. But you shoot them an email and ask them. They have really good answers. So that has been our segment. It's turned into a Q&A, but it's all good. It's all good. And willfully, some of you got something from that. Okay. And I will speak to you all very soon. This has been Chief Yuya, head instructor at Sadulu House Spiritual Center, Chief Jegna, the ANU Spiritual Order. And I am now signing off of Foundational Friday. Peace and power.